Hi everyone, my name is Aric Refutation, and today I'll be refuting the claim that one of our classmate Anna made that smartphone usage is harmful to teenagers. She made this argument in three points. The first being that smartphone usage has a negative impact on teens' sleep patterns. The second being that smartphone usage is adversely affecting teens' mental health. And the third being that teens can develop a smartphone addiction. Now before I start, I would like to say that Anna did make a great point and she had a good central argument. However, my main issue with her claim lies primarily in her evidence that she used. My response to her first claim that smartphone usage has a negative impact on teen sleep patterns, Anna claimed that the buzzing that goes out from smartphones is distracting and that subconsciously teens are expecting that buzz and as a result are not able to enter rapid eye movement, the deep sleep patterns where rest happens and where growth occurs. And she does this by talking about, she talks about how 20% of American teens say they are not getting, or 20% of American teens say they're getting 9 hours of sleep a night. 9 hours of sleep being the standard amount of time that all teenagers should sleep. And she claims that smartphone usage and the expected buzzing of smartphones is the reason why they aren't getting that 9 hours of sleep. I propose instead that the ambient noise levels in the United States are the reason why they're not getting this exact 9 hours of sleep. To support this, I pose to you this. The Indiana Department of Transportation claims that changes in the U.S. decibel level changes in the U.S. sound level are louder now than they have been in the past. They state that changes from 3 to 5 decibels are perceptible to people with sensitive ears, and that changes of greater than 5 decibels are perceptible to anyone with average hearing. A little bit of background information. Decibels are measured logarithmically, which means that a difference of 10 decibels means that the sound is twice as loud. So if I'm speaking to you right now at 7 decibels, if I was speaking to you at 17 decibels, I would sound a lot like this. That's, just kind of an example of what I'm talking about. According to Statista.com, there are approximately 268,000 cars measured in 2016, as compared to the 193,000 cars measured in 1990. That's a difference of about 75,000 cars, and definitely a difference in ambient sound at all hours of night. Traffic patterns prove this. I myself live on a very busy street in my hometown, and the only time I ever notice a dip in traffic is at about 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. when no one in their right mind would be out of the house anyways. That is the only perceptible measure of traffic loss. Now, from this, I claim that Anna's evidence is not as sufficient as she wants it to be, and that there are better ways to express the loss of sleep, and that cell phones are not the primary cause. My response to claim 2 that smartphone usage is adversely affecting teens' mental health is that depression among teens is constantly growing. In fact, depression rates among teens are the highest they've been ever, according to the National Institute of Mental Health. In a paper published by the Mayo Clinic, or the Mayo Clinic, I'm not exactly sure on the pronunciation, but the clinic that is respected among Americans as a medical institution, 3.1 million adolescents had at least one major depressive episode, which stands as 12.8% of the population aged between 12 and 17. Now, Anna said that smartphone usage is the reason why a lot of teens suffer from depression, but I bring up a counterpoint. Perhaps teens use smartphones because they suffer from depression. It's a lot like the chicken and the egg argument. Which came first, we don't know. And the only evidence I have to support this claim is that, according to the Mayo Clinic, again, symptoms of depression in teens can manifest themselves in a variety of ways. Chief among them is an avoidance of social interaction, and as we all know, when we don't want to talk to anyone, we pull our phones out and put our earphones in, right? That's just what we do. Anna's third claim is that teens can develop a smartphone addiction. And while she does have good evidence to support this claim, I do think that her evidence is not persuasive enough. It doesn't do the job it's supposed to do. And in response, I pose this. how does the addiction negatively impact the teens? Anna doesn't include statistics that show that teens suffer academically or by any other metric. All she says is that teens without access to smartphones are irritable. Teenagers are irritable. That's why they're teenagers. If I was told at 15 years old that I can't play Xbox with my friends, I would be irritable. If I was told that I can't talk to my friends in real life, I would be irritable. I was just irritable. According to a study published in the European Scientific Journal, mobile phone usage, the findings were that mobile phone usage has a negative impact on school performance among secondary school seniors in Nigeria. Now, how does this relate to American seniors? If Nigerian school seniors saw a reduction in performance in school with more limited infrastructure to support communications, then my point is that American teenagers in schools with access to much more infrastructure to support this communication would see an equal, if not greater than, decrease in efficiency in schooling. So, in conclusion, I think that Anna has a good proposition. However, I think that her reasons supporting that proposition are ultimately flawed and not as effective as she wants them to be.
All right, the structural issues are all pretty good. On the first point, I think that you have a nice argument concerning alternate causality on sound. I do think it's a little hard to figure out where these other sounds are coming from. You do have an increasing number of vehicles on the road. I think that's your argument, that there's more vehicles on the road, and that means that there's greater decibels outside and the ambient noise and creates that problem. Your numbers are a little unclear. I appreciate that there's been an increase in the numbers, I get that. But the idea that there are only 268,000 vehicles, what the hell is that? Where? What are we talking about? Context is king, and I can't tell you what the context is here. So the general argument needs to be stated a little bit more clearly. There are more vehicles on the road creating more ambient noise. You know, the average number of vehicles in a state in 1990 was 75,000, and today it's 268,000, or something like that. I've got to have some way to figure out what these numbers mean. I know the point that you're trying to make, but because the information is not being presented as a complete quote, it's just like random piece of data that is not being given a context, it's less credible. And so you need to fix that, because I think that's a good argument. I think there are plenty of other good explanations as to why teens don't get as much sleep as well. And we didn't have one of those speeches this quarter that I can remember, but I swear every quarter for the last 3 years I've heard a speech about how, school starts too frickin' early. They're given too much homework. They're overloaded in the schools, and so, Common Core is screwing up everything. Holy criminy, some of these high school seniors have, 20 hours of work to do a day, including all the activities that they're doing, and they go to sleep and they only get 4 hours of sleep. It's not their damn cell phone going off, it's all the work that they're doing. I think that would be an easier argument that would apply to the specific group that you're talking about than the other argument. Although I like that argument too. I just think you're missing the low-hanging fruit on the alternative causality, and that's why would you want to do that? So think about that a little bit more. The mental health issue, Mayo Clinic is perfectly fine, by the way. The notion that we have teens with these problems, then you've got a numerical piece of information on it. I don't know that the advocate correlated any of that with cell phone use. You almost do that by suggesting that it's the highest of any level that we've ever had. And I'd say, well, isn't that also true of cell phone use or possession by our teens? So maybe that supports the argument. I think you need to be a little bit careful about the information that you're presenting here. I do think that there's, again, arguments about, you took a completely different approach to it. You said, when they are depressed, they avoid social interaction, and that's when they stick in their headphones and tune out. And I'd have gone a completely different way on this. Cell phones are for social interaction. The idea that you use your cell phone for social interaction when depression discourages social interaction, that seems to be counterintuitive. It goes in the opposite direction. That seems to me like the way you want to make that argument. The way you make it sounds like you're actually supporting Anna's position, and that's a little confusing. So I was not sure how that argument was going to ultimately benefit you. I did like the last point that you make, that, oh, big surprise, teens are irritable, and you diminished the significance of that, I thought, pretty effectively. I think almost everybody appreciated that there's not really any much substance to this particular point. I got a little bit confused with some of the information that you're presenting at the end. You do want to be careful about sounding like you're giving an evaluation of Anna's speech instead of a refutation of the speech. Say, I don't know that the opposite is true, but I can tell you that Anna failed to prove her point. And the reason she failed to prove her point is because she made an inference from the evidence that's not validated. She's ignored alternative causes, and the issue that she's talking about is not particularly significant. There you go. That's your argument. You don't have to do anything other than make those points. Keep it simple. Be direct. Don't get involved in... I know everybody wants to be a nice person. It's one of those things. We want to be socially acceptable. I don't want to sound like I'm beating up on somebody, but you're not. You're just making the arguments about what the issues are, and I think that would have been fine. All right, thank you.